Hello, and welcome to day 6 of the Ability event. And happy Friday. On Fridays, it's Arts Happy Hour here at the Ability event. My name is Joseph Jones. I'm the Executive Director of the Harkin Institute, and I'm glad that you could join us today for this very special Arts Happy Hour with Susan Sygall. Susan is the CEO and co-founder of Mobility International. She's going to talk to us today about making of the documentary The Story of Wild. I hope you've had a chance to enjoy the documentary already and are prepared for a great question and answer session with Susan today. We're really glad that you could be with us and hope that you'll be able to join us for more of these programs and presentations as we celebrate 30 years of the Americans with Disabilities Act and look toward the future. Please enjoy today's presentation.
Hi, Susan. Wait 1 minute while we try to get to Letha's. There we go.
All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome. And Susan, thank you for coming and joining us today. We're really glad to have you. My name is Letha Kopp. I'll be your student facilitator for the day. I am a second-year rehabilitation and addiction counseling student. I am white female. I have brown hair back in a bun, brown eyes. I'm wearing a jean collared shirt with a silver necklace, and I use the pronouns she and her and hers. If you have any questions, I welcome you to put them up in our chat during our event here, and I will do my best to bring those to the front and get those out here. Susan, if you could just describe yourself and what you look like, we'll go ahead and let you introduce yourself, and we'll start off from there. Sorry, Susan, we can't hear you. Your mic is still off.
Okay, is this better? Okay, good. Okay, thank you. My name is Susan Sygall. I'm a white wheelchair user. I'm wearing a black top and a scarf, and I'm in some of my artwork. My pronouns are she and her and hers, and I am so excited to be here today. So thank you.
All right, sorry about that. All right, well, and like I said, we're very glad to have you. So we'll go ahead and I'll let you go ahead and start sharing. Like I said, if anybody has any questions while Susan's sharing, if you don't mind putting them in the chat, I'll read them, and when we have an opportunity to ask some questions once Susan's done, we'll leave some time at the end for that. I'll make sure we get to it. I'll make sure that those questions get out there and we can have some discussion and learn some more from Susan. Sound all right to you, Susan?
Yeah, so do you just want me to jump in with speaking to some of the questions that you sent me? Is that the best format?
Sure, yeah, that would actually work just fine.
Okay, well, again, everybody, hi again, and thank you. As I said, I'm Susan Sygall. I'm the CEO of Mobility International USA, and as many of you might know, MIUSA, as we call it, is an organization dedicated to advancing disability rights and leadership globally. And I'm here today because I was asked to talk about a performance piece that I did with a MacArthur Fellow. I happened to do this with 2 other MacArthur Fellows, called The Story of Wild. And I'm hoping that some of you have watched that, and I'm very eager to hear your questions or your comments and your thoughts about that. And as you know, The Story of Wild is about one of the signature programs that Mobility International USA does. And we've been doing this now, it's going to be, and the acronym is WILD. And that stands for the Women's Institute on Leadership and Disability. And what we do is we bring around 30 disabled women with all types of different disabilities together, and for a 3-week very intensive leadership training, so that disabled women from around the world can primarily learn from each other and from all their own experiences, but also they come to Oregon, where MIUSA is based, and really learn about everything from disability rights to education to law and policy. And it really creates sort of a 3-week magical opportunity to really create an environment of disabled women taking their rightful place as leaders. And we will be hopefully having our 10th WILD program in 2021. And so far we have over 235 what we call WILD women who've been through our program, representing 89 different countries. And we use a train-the-trainer approach. So all these amazing disabled women leaders from around the world, they are going back to their communities, and we have a manual which was that we wrote, and then we had added information from our disabled women trainers from around the world to make sure that does this training work for them? Is it culturally what they would want in a training manual? And with that feedback, they take the WILD manual and they adapt it and train other young disabled women in their countries. So now we, in addition to our disabled WILD women in 89 countries, we've probably trained, you know, close to 2,000 women in all sorts of communities, rural, big cities, everywhere. During our WILD program, we train in English and Spanish, in American Sign Language. We use certified deaf interpreters. So it's really, really important that we use a rights-based approach, that we are cross-disability. We've also had a WILD program, our first regional program in Sri Lanka. That was our first regional program, just bringing women from that region together, using trainers from that area to lead those sessions. And of course, it's our hope and dream, in addition to having another WILD program in 2021 here in Oregon, that we're hoping someday we could have other WILD regional trainings run by disabled women from those countries, in addition to the women coming to Oregon and then going back and training other women all over the world. So getting into the WILD program is very competitive. We sometimes have over 400 applications for only 20 or 30 slots. So we, it's a program that we, you know, we'd like to continue, and we always learn so much from all our WILD women. And it also creates sort of like a sense of family. We just had a call a little while ago with our WILD women, actually from 2019. They instigated their own Zoom reunion 1 year after WILD, and that was very emotional, with women from, you know, with, I don't know, 25 countries. And we're hoping in a few weeks to do another call of all our WILD women, going all the way back till 1997, when we'll have it in English and Spanish, maybe Arabic, ASL, certified deaf interpreters, transcription, everything that we need to make sure that it's completely inclusive. And the questions that some people say, like, where did this idea for WILD come about? And WILD actually had its birth at the Beijing conference. Actually, in 1995, there was the big World Conference on Women in Beijing, and MIUSA and other organized a symposium a day before the Beijing conference, bringing together many, many disabled women from all over the world. And our goal was to be together as disabled women and say, we are going to infiltrate this conference. We are going to take over. And that is a whole other story about the whole amazing journey that disabled women had at that conference. But also at the Beijing conference, we said, what do we do after Beijing? How do we create a place where disabled women from around the world can share strategies, share information to really make the changes that disabled women need to make in all of our countries? And so it was from Beijing that WILD was born. And I think perhaps, you know, in WILD, there's so many types of different experiences. You know, when I think, you know, hearing the WILD women from so many years, like when we ask, like, what was the moment that really was important to you, that maybe changed you, that trampolined you to your next height? It's so different for each woman. For some women, it was the first time they got on an airplane by themselves, sometimes traveling 30, 40 hours by themselves, whether they're blind, quadriplegic, deaf, whatever the disability. And they perhaps were a little nervous about that, and they did it, and they arrived 40 hours later, and there we were at the airport. For other women, it was the chance just to be finally disabled women, to be the majority, to be surrounded by 30 powerful, amazing disabled women. For other women, it was meeting the mayor of Eugene. For some women, it was learning. We just celebrated the 30th anniversary of the ADA, watching that film of the takeover of the 504, of the Health, Education, and Welfare Building, seeing the disability struggle in the United States. For some women, that was a big moment. For some women, it was seeing inclusive schools. For some women, taking an accessible bus, living with a homestay family. And of course, we do a lot of what we call empowerment activities in addition to all the workshops. And in those times, we do things like the challenge course, where women go up 40 feet in the air, or river rafting. We do self-defense. We learn about family planning, HIV prevention. So I think for each woman, there's a sort of a moment that maybe for them where they realize that they need to push against preconceived notions of what's possible and really do things that perhaps, you know, we think never were able, that disabled women could do it, and they need to do it not just for themselves, because they're at Wild to make changes for other disabled women, girls in all their countries. During Wild, we also invite international development organizations to come for 3 days, and we're out camping together with them. And for many women, they are learning about the international development organizations in their countries who may not previously have included disabled women in their programs, in their live violence prevention programs, and whatever programs they're doing. So it's a chance to educate international development organizations to make sure that they are more inclusive and to have contacts for funding and for further programs. And now, you know, during this unfortunate COVID whole pandemic, we are working with a lot of our Wild women to make sure that all the services and the programs and the information they need, those international development organizations need to go to the disabled women leaders, to the Wild women leaders, to make sure the information is getting to disabled women, and let disabled women lead. Let disabled women leaders lead around the world. That's what needs to happen, I think. I maybe just want to close a little bit with, you know, one of the questions was, you know, how, you know, do the Wild women get out of the comfort zone? I think all of us get out of our comfort zone all the time, and it's because we have to disrupt the status quo. And for me, the term that I've been using these days is moving from inclusion to infiltration. And I think some of the women sign, like the sign for infiltration was something like that. I don't know if they made that up, but it was sort of like, for so long, disabled women have been waiting for people to either invite us or do a disability workshop or to be ready for us or to do a target program. And we're saying, no, 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 no. We're not waiting for anybody any longer. If you are anywhere in the world and you see a women's leadership program, an HIV prevention program, a literacy program, any kind of program, anything that the non-disabled women are doing or non-disabled people are doing, those are your programs. And so we as Wild women are just infiltrating those programs, bringing our disabled sisters with us and saying, these are our programs, we need to be here, you need to get sign language interpreters, you need to get information in formats that everybody can read, it needs to be physically accessible, we might need extra transportation, whatever it takes, disabled women have to be there. And so I guess I just want to end with, because I'm really excited to get questions, is sort of our battle cry for the Wild program is, you know, loud, proud, and passionate. And I think that really sort of captures just this essence of of power, of disrupting the status quo, of really finally realizing that the world needs to start utilizing disabled women leaders. And there are many, many amazing disabled women leaders. And we need to create a different future for disabled girls. They need to grow up feeling proud, passionate, and they need to get their rights. And so we need to work for legislation that has teeth. And we need to have this empowerment feeling for disabled women around the world. So to end with, I guess, say, for those of you who watched The Power of Wild, after hearing the stories of so many wild women from so many years, I hope I was able to capture some of their messages, their dreams, my message, my dreams, all of our dreams, that enough is enough, and that disabled women now need to take the lead to make the world that we want to see. So with that, I know it's happy hour for all of you. I'm going to have my little drink, and I'm going to say that I would love to hear any questions or any comments. But it was a very emotional thing for me to do The Power of Wild. It was not something I usually do. And I hope that it will not just be a performance. I hope people will listen to the performance, see the performance, and I hope it will change things for the better. So thank you for this opportunity.
Well, thank you, Susan. And I want to say I found it a very powerful documentary, video performance as well. Just the combination of hearing your story, hearing the other women's stories, women from all over the world, and how Wild has really affected them and what they got out of it. And everybody found something different to take from it, but at the same time, there's that really unity and that together. And kind of speaking to that, just wondering if you could maybe tell us a little bit more about your motivation to create the documentary itself.
Yeah, thank you for that question. And this is Susan speaking. As I said, I have this, the honor of being a MacArthur Fellow, which is a fellowship that people get from many different disciplines: scientists, artists, researchers, activists. It's very, very broad. And once you get a MacArthur Fellow, every few years they invite all the MacArthur Fellows to Chicago for a reunion, which is amazing. And during that time, I heard about a small grant that you could get. And the idea of the grant was to do something that would involve 2 other MacArthur Fellows, but from different disciplines, not from what the same discipline as you. So I, being a disability rights activist, thought I had met the beautiful musician Claire Chase, who played flute, and the amazing musician Reginald Robinson, who played piano. And I didn't know them, and I said, I don't know exactly what I want to do, but I want to amplify the voices of the wild women. I want to tell this story, and I want to add music, and I want to do it differently. And we just creatively, I wrote the script, and as you know, Reginald composed an original piece, and Claire helped us, and it was probably, talk about the wild women being out of their comfort zone. That was probably the biggest thing out of my comfort zone, because this is not what I do. And then we videoed it. And so I thought, I've been saying the same thing for so long, for so many years. What if you use artistry, creativity, and activism? And what if you take those 3 things and you put them all together? Will it be a more powerful or a different kind of powerful way to make that message? But it was scary.
I'm sure, yeah. Well, thank you for responding to that. I have Stephen Anderson says it's good to see you. And he asks, when the women go back to their countries after participating in a wild workshop, what are some of their success stories back when they go back home?
Okay, great. Well, thank you, Stephen, for that question. Well, one of the things that, besides coming and then going back and doing training, that each of the women also get a small grant. So they have the funds to do training. I think some of the success stories is when they do the trainings, let's say they're doing it on reproductive health or whatever, maybe self-defense, whatever they're doing, they're usually partnering with a group that's a non-disability group. So an organization that does violence prevention, an organization that does reproductive health. And some of the success stories is those organizations, now that they're working with disabled women and they realize all the accommodations they have to do, even after the training is over, they now have relationships with those organizations. And so maybe before they didn't include women with disabilities, now they have relationships with these women, and now they also include disabled women. So relationships that go way beyond the training are formed. And the other thing that happens is, I say we have women with many different types of disabilities, and a lot of the deaf women have never, done things with blind women, and the blind women haven't done things with people in wheelchairs and people with non-apparent disabilities. And you have to include everybody when you go back. So I think all the women and all the programs that they're doing are really embracing that we are all one family. And so if you're going to do any fight or any program, you really have to include all your disabled women sisters. And I think for many women, that's a different way of doing things. And I think that's important. I think we need to have work together, and deaf women are fighting for wheelchair ramps, and women who are wheelchair users are, fighting for assistive technology. I mean, all of us, it's all of our issues. We're not just thinking about our own. So many, many successes, but there's some things that you can't quantify. And that, I think, is the feeling of family and sisterhood and support from all the women to each other. And I know for me, it's an unbelievable privilege to be part of the Wild Women. It's completely changed my life. So I'm very grateful for all the things I've learned from my Wild sisters.
All right, we have another. So you're someone who took an idea and put it into action through creating Mobility International. How have you sustained your program development over the years that you've been working with it and helping it grow and bringing it to different countries?
Right. Okay. Well, thank you. Well, this is Susan speaking, and actually, I co-founded Mobility International USA with Barbara Williams, and actually, we're having next year our 40th. Can you believe it? Anniversary. So it is a very long time. And to be honest, if you want to create a nonprofit that lasts that long, you need to surround yourself with people who complement your skills. I mean, hopefully I am able to have some vision and idea, but I am surrounded by an incredible staff who are excellent at writing grants, at organizing programs, at doing so many things. So I'm very grateful I get the credit as the CEO, but it's really the staff that at MIUSA that I think has made MIUSA so successful, and the ability for all of us, we're a small but powerful organization, to work as a team. And my job, as a leader, is to really thank and appreciate the people who are doing the very, very hard work of making all these programs happen. And that's I think that's the secret, is to surround yourself with great, passionate, creative people, which I've been very fortunate to have.
Thank you. I have a question from Vivian. She says, what are the requirements to participate in the WILD program?
All right, well, thank you, Vivian. That's a great question. This is Susan speaking. So as I say, it's mainly for women from what we call the Global South. So we have mostly women from Africa, Asia, Latin America. We don't have anyone from the US, since we have so few spaces. We don't have people, like from Sweden or Germany or some of those you know, quote the more north countries, but you don't, you know, some of the women pay maybe $50 at the most if they don't have money. So it's pretty much a full scholarship, and they airfare, living with families, being in Eugene. But they have to fill out a lot of essays. We ask a lot of questions. They have to get references, and they have to get references not only from maybe a disability organization, but also from a non-disability organization to show their ability to work in partnership. And then again, we are looking for not necessarily women who've been to the United States a million times, who are established leaders. We're looking for those women who are innovative, who are creative, maybe from a small rural place, maybe from a big city, but from their application that they are the type of person, the age range goes from the 20s, I don't know, I think we've had people up to 40s, 50s, but usually 20, they're about 20, 30 around years old. But people who we think are passionate, have already done some things, and have a certain spark to want to do more and to take risks.
Thank you. I have a question from Kathy. She says, what are some challenges you face as a woman with a disability who is a leader globally?
Okay, great question. Thank you, Kathy. Well, this is Susan speaking again. I think, you know, historically, even within the disability movement, I mean, it's known that a lot of organizations, there's still a lot of sexism, and especially sometimes women's leadership is not really recognized as it should be. I'm very fortunate. I you know, as I say, co-founded this organization. So for me, rather than having to work under a system that I thought was not good, I created my organization. And before this organization, I co-created another organization. And so I think as a leader, that has given me a lot of freedom. But yeah, I think there's definitely still a lot of sexism, and I think you have to build relationships with people you have trust, and you have to push and be incredibly persistent when people put up roadblocks, and there will be roadblocks.
Thank you. We have a question from Katie. What do you hope to see continue to improve over the next 30 years under the ADA?
Well, thank you, Katie. This is again Susan speaking. You know, we work mostly internationally. There are many other organizations who are working much more on domestically. One of the things that our organization does is we do, for those of you in the US, we do through our National Clearinghouse on Disability Exchange, which is part of MIUSA, we try to advance international exchange programs for people with disabilities. So if you're watching, listening, participating in this call, and you have ever thought about, even though now I know nobody's traveling, but we're imagining this will someday pass, if you've ever thought of volunteering abroad or studying abroad, researching abroad, being a Fulbright fellow, a high school student learning a language, you should definitely contact miusa.org, because we want to hear from you to get more disabled people to have the same opportunities for international exchange as non-disabled people. And part of that, the reason why I'm talking about exchange is when people come here, they see the power of the ADA. And then when they go back sometimes to their home countries, they are also working on different sometimes legislation, but maybe legislation that also has teeth, because that I think is the power of the ADA. And so something that they can do to really see that the ADA makes an impact. So with that, for my lifetime, the ADA definitely has made an impact. When I started out, as I said in the beginning of the wild story, no employment, no buses with rams, nothing. And I think the ADA has done a lot. Where I think there's still more work to be done, of course, there's still places that people are trying to not listen to the ADA where it's not enforced. I think there's a lot of work still that the ADA doesn't cover on personal assistance, so people with disabilities can live independently anywhere, no matter who they are. I think that's another area. So I think that there's definitely more work that needs to be done, so it's even stronger enforced and also includes personal assistance and probably some many other issues as well. So there's a lot always of room for improvement, but we also celebrate what it's done so far and needs to do more.
Thank you. I have another question. This is Talitha speaking, and I'm just going to send a reminder to anyone who's watching. If you do have questions for Susan, I just want to remind people to please place it in the question and answer chat, and I will get to them there. I do have one from Vivian. She says, with the continued COVID-19 pandemic, what are some of your biggest challenges in fighting against discrimination, unfair practices, and/or human rights?
Right. Okay. Well, thank you for that question. And this is Susan speaking again. I know there are many people in the U.S. who are working on, there's a lot of discrimination in terms of getting the same access to healthcare around COVID-19, people who use personal assistance. As again, my organization, we're working more internationally. So we're hearing more from people with disabilities, especially disabled women. And what we're hearing is that, perhaps women in other countries who are deaf are not getting the information, or women who use wheelchairs are not able to access food. People who have, selling things or whatever job they have no longer have access to money. People who need, again, maybe a personal assistance. So there's lots, and unfortunately the other huge area is violence against disabled women. Many women are now forced maybe to be in an unsafe situation at home. Tensions are rising. So we are working on, we have put in several proposals, and we're going to be working with our disabled women, especially our wild women around the world, so they can tell us what are the issues in their countries, what do they need to be safe, what do they need to stay healthy, and if there are any discrimination or where they're not getting the same services that are happening around the world, that we need to work with them and to change that. So I think it is a very scary situation for people with disabilities, and I'm hoping that through writing these grants and hopefully getting this funding, that again, back to what I said, we're letting disabled women leaders lead, so they can tell everybody else what is needed, what needs to be done to save the lives of disabled women and girls and all people with disabilities.
This is Talitha speaking. Thank you. We've got a number of participants who are from China, and I remember reading in your book about your travels in China and different countries, and I loved how you shared about the Beijing Women's Conference and how that was so important in your story. What advice do you have for young people in China who serve as advocates for people with disabilities in China?
Okay, great. Well, if I can say with my bad Chinese, ni hao, which is hello in Chinese, and thank you so much for listening and being on this webinar. I think I was actually 4 times in China, and I know many of the folks at St. Cloud have many trips to China. And, I think that you can really stay in touch. There's a lot of information about people with disabilities, about disabled women. I think now, especially through Zoom and stuff, to not feel alone in your struggle. I mean, people in Burundi and Sierra Leone and Costa Rica and really every country of the world, people are dealing with really discrimination, trying to get to the university, trying to do what they can to have the same rights. So I think to really feel connected, that whatever you're going through with China is there's also a larger, I'm sure there's very specific issues to China, but to feel power that, and because I think the hardest thing is if you fight and you don't see change for a while, it's really easy to get discouraged. And I think there's to really work at getting at least some small victories. And again, because, you know, one of the things that our organization does, besides leadership training, we work in international development and we work in international exchange, is, you know, anytime you can encourage people to go on an exchange again to the US, because I think anytime people from other countries share information, that you then go home with new ideas and new enthusiasm. So I do, you know, I want to say at this point that MAIUSA is about to host a free conference, and I don't know if Ashley or Amy can put the information in the chat box, but it's on our website and it's called Joining Hands, and it's going to be several days through the month of August. And it's good if you have any interest in even thinking about the possibility of being on an international exchange, learning different languages. There's so many different sessions, and many probably people that you will recognize will be speaking at these sessions, people with all types of disabilities, all types of experiences. Really, everyone from around the world, we really encourage you to sign up for Joining Hands. Because again, feeling part of this global movement is something that I think that all people, all activists, we all need that, and especially now when, well, most of us are in our homes, perhaps feeling a bit alone, to feel the strength in being connected with disabled people and allies of disabled people around the world.
Thank you. I have a question. This is Talitha speaking. I have a question from Steve Anderson. He says, Susan, I think I know the answer, but you've been discussing your work with Women with the Wild. However, does your organization work with men also?
Right. Well, thank you, Stephen, for the question. This is Susan speaking. Yes, I'm talking today mainly about WILD and women with disabilities because that was I was asked to do because of the performance. Our organization, I say for 40 years, we have exchanges. We probably have over 2,600 or more than that alumni from over 135 countries. And except for maybe 10 exchanges or 11, they are all both men and women with disabilities, or those who self-identify as men and women. So the majority of all MAIUSA's programs are both for people with all types of disabilities, all types of how you self-identify in terms of gender. I just today spoke specifically about women with disabilities. So again, if you're interested in going on exchange or learning more about what we do, MAIUSA is an organization that works with both. I do think it's important that we have focused programs just for women with disabilities, because as everybody knows, women with disabilities face more discrimination than disabled men. And sometimes there's a real need to balance this with having disabled women get that fortitude and that expertise because of the extra discrimination. But I also always like to say, when we talk about there's more, you're doubly discriminated once you're a disabled woman, and once you're disabled, once you're a woman, it's really important to also flip that around and say you have two positive things going for you. You're a woman and you're a woman with disabilities. So we don't always make this a deficit. So Stephen, I hope I answered your question. MAIUSA's organization works with people with all types of disabilities, all genders. That's the majority of our work. And today I just focused a bit more on WILD and women with disabilities, which obviously is very close to my heart.
Thank you. And we did get the link to the All Hands virtual conference, everyone. It is in the chat now, so there'll be a link to it. You can go click on, save it, sign up for it. We do have one more question from Bradley Kuhlman. He says, what advice would you give new students in graduate programs who want to be disability activists when they graduate?
Oh, that's a great question. Well, thank you for that. And this is Susan speaking. So I I think what I would suggest, which is, you know, I did most of my undergraduate at, I went to UC Berkeley in California. I went on an exchange program on a Rotary scholarship. I lived a year in Australia and studied there for my graduate work. And then I graduated from the University of Oregon with my master's. And the thing that I would say most important is I did a lot of independent studies and projects. I really don't like to think there's school, there's university, and then there's your real life. I think you've got to put your personal life, your academic life, your activism life all together. So I worked with a lot of my professors to do things like start a program as a project, or, you know, do something that's really going to change somebody's life and get credit for it and learn from doing. So as much as you can do that, I think it gives you self-confidence, it gives you skills that you'll need later. And I really encourage you to think a bit out of the box as you can to get credit for innovative projects. And, you know, do that in teams. You don't have to do it with yourself, do it with a friend. We at MyUSA also teach a course at the University of Oregon. It's called Global Perspectives on Disability, and it talks a lot about activism and global issues. And we've done it at the University of Oregon, and we're hoping we're going to be able to take that online as a class that will be available for anyone around the world, maybe also with different languages and accommodations. So, you know, watch our website, miusa.org. We do have an e-newsletter called Global Impact. If you go on our website, you can sign up for that. And that's also just a great way to always see what's going on. And again, I hope a lot of you will join our Joining Hands conference. I will say also, if you're interested in more personal things, I did write a memoir called No Ordinary Days, a journey of activism, globetrotting, and unexpected pleasures. So if that is of interest to you, and I hope you will let people know more about the story of Wild. And please, you know, email me if you have any other questions or comments. I so loved my time at St. Cloud when I was able to be there a while ago. It was just wonderful with Amy and meeting everybody. I know I met many of the students. I really want to thank each of you for all that you do, and anyone who's participating in this. I know these are difficult times, but I hope you all just take a moment to appreciate what you all are doing, also to change the world, or what you're planning to do. And really, I think we need to forge through this time, stay positive, because there's a lot more work to be done. And so I just really want to thank you for this opportunity. So that's what I want to say.
All right, thank you. This is Talitha speaking again. I just want to thank you, Susan, for coming and speaking with us. I think all of us could agree that we'd love to spend more time with you, asking questions, getting to know you, and just learning more and more from each other. However, I do know that we are running short on time here. And so I will wrap things up here. Again, like Susan said, if you have any more questions for Susan, she's welcome to receiving emails and would love to communicate with you more on any questions you might have. I'd like to also remind you all that on Sunday morning at 9 a.m. we will have an interfaith reflection with Dr. Jerry Wellick. So that will be our next event for the Ability event. So thank you again, Susan, for coming today.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
And thank you everybody for attending.
Okay, take care.
Thank you, Susan.
Bye-bye, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.